So once again, a very good morning to all of you. And it's 10 minutes past the hour. I thank you very much for joining us this morning. My name is Robert Jato, CEO of Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana. Uh, you're welcome. This session today is a collaboration between Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana and Chartered Institute of Human Resource Management Ghana. And we are extremely grateful that you could join us. We want to just get into this. This is a collaboration, like I said, it's a free webinar. It's a great start of the year. And we'll share with you why we think that this is a very important topic to discuss, which is developing T-shaped HR practitioners in the financial sector and beyond. And because I'm conscious that there are people who have joined us today beyond the financial service sector. But why is this important? And this is about people, really. And I'll share with you the story I'm told has been told by Kofi Annan of blessed memory. Kofi Annan is said to have said that when God was creating the world, he created all the other parts of the world and left a very big hole in the center of the world. And when he had finished creating the other parts of the world, he started putting the leftover resources in the center of the world in that big hole. The angels who were working with God were quite surprised at what God was doing. So they approached God and said, well, we've been working with you for a while. We don't quite understand why you're leaving so much resources here in this big hole in the center of the world. Guess what God's response was? God said, wait until you see the people I'll put there. Question, where is Africa? Africa is in the center of the world. What resources hasn't God given us? Think about any resource. We are blessed with so many, but the people. So the problem, perhaps the challenge of Africa is a human capital problem, or having the right skills with the right mindset, with the right tool set and the heart set will be very, very important. And that's where you come in as HR practitioners, professionals in the financial service sector. And we are zooming in on financial service sector, again, knowing the importance of human beings generally and human capital in our context, but also because our industry is being redefined constantly, whether it's from skills perspective, also from the talent exodus that we face in the financial service sector. Superimposed on that challenge, the climate change and all the environmental destruction that we face. But also there's another thing happening, which is the rise of AI and digital and all the other technologies that we can think or imagine. So the future of banks and maybe bankers and broadly the financial service sector may be completely different. What is important though is trust will be important, and trust it's a people issue, and trust is from competencies, but also character and conduct, and those are the things that as HR practitioners you are supposed to be custodians of. We also seen the erosion of that trust. And if you look at the headlines, they are not particularly inspiring. And if you look at the Bank of Ghana fraud report, in terms of staff involvement in fraud, that's also not very inspiring. So it's crucially important that we are having this conversation today about developing the T-shaped HR professionals. And we'll talk about that pretty shortly. At Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana, our mandate is actually to promote banking education but also regulate the practice of the banking profession in Ghana. People ask, what does that actually mean? It means developing trusted professionals for the financial service sector. It means putting ethics and sustainability high on the agenda of banks and bankers. And certainly it means being the talent and leadership engine for the financial service sector, but also for the country as a whole. It is in that spirit that we are collaborating with, again, the Chartered Institute of Human Resource Management to bring this thought leadership event to you. So question is, how do we develop the T-shaped HR professionals in the financial service sector? And actually, what is that T-shaped HR, professionals? I have the privilege of introducing to you Dr. Francis Eduku, who is the CEO of Chartered Institute of HR Management or Human Resource Management Ghana. And he will take us through that. Before he comes in, it will be good to get a quick sense of what's top of mind for you. What are the stay awake issues for you as HR practitioner working in the financial services sector? So very shortly on your screens, you see a question. If you click on, or if you type in to your Google, and it's in the chat as well, type into Google www.menti.com and enter the code that you are seeing on your screen. You'll be able to respond to a quick question, which is top of mind for you. But please look into your chat right now. There's a link that has been posted. If you click on the link, it's even easier. And then enter the code. That will set the context for our conversation as we prepare to welcome Dr. Francis Eduku, who is the CEO of Chartered Institute of Human Resource Management Ghana. So just to be sure, the question you have is, what are your stay awake issues or biggest challenges as an HR practitioner in the financial services sector? Okay, so say the very first one, please, if you type, we'll see the word cloud, coming up. So again, use the link posted and use the code that we just displayed to respond. We've seen just one response so far. Okay, excellent. Others are coming through. Great. We're seeing some very interesting responses. Talent in cybersecurity space, working hours of employees, and the work-life balance of same. Talent pipelining for critical roles, female talent for executive roles and key management roles, managing Gen Zs recruited. That's an interesting one. How to promote work-life balance, that's coming through very strongly. How to manage a vast number of, I believe, resources working remotely, retaining of good talent or staff, financial planning for retirement, employee engagement, work-life balance, again, key talent acquisition and retention. Great. Now, it's interesting that what we are seeing, and the reason we've organized this again event is that as HR practitioners, we are always thinking about others in terms of what we can do, but there's no focus on us in terms of how do we develop ourselves in this context to deliver and support the organization. You recall that in one of our events with HR practitioners working in the financial service sector, I recall it was Peter Osruchi of GCB Bank who suggested that could there be some collaboration between the two professional bodies to bring focus on what we can do to support you, HR practitioners, in this space, given the challenges and the top of mind issues that you face. At this point, therefore, I would hand over to Dr. Francis Ediku to take over. Let me quickly acknowledge also our council members and other stakeholders who have joined us this morning. Once again, you're all welcome. Francis, if you can hear me, I'll hand over to you.
So this will be the outline for the TCP presentation, and we'll do a little bit of introduction. First, let me apologize for the hitches that we had. Our internet was a bit of messy this morning, but I'm happy we've come on board. So why T-shaped HR practitioner? We also look at the views on T-shaped HR and also the T-shaped HR for the financial sector. Look at some of the competencies that is required and we just draw a conclusion. But let me give you this bit of introduction as a way to work into it. You see, HR practitioners will play a critical role in connecting people to the business. Basically, for us, it's about the productivity of the employees. And this connection cannot be achieved through an expertise in only one domain. So the effective people-business alignment certainly requires T-shaped HR practitioners who demonstrate a broad understanding of the business and have the cross-cutting capabilities and deep expertise in HR domains. I think, in short, high-performing organizations are looking for T-shaped HR practitioners and not I-shaped HR practitioners. What I call the I-shaped is where our focus is only in the HR domain. And that is not what the business is looking for. But the business is looking for T-shaped HR. And as we go through, you will see why it is important that we get T-shaped HR practitioners. Because these practitioners have strong strategic agility. What do I mean by strategic agility? They have the ability to adapt quickly to changing needs and also what could change. Not what is changing, but also what could change. Because they have the breadth of the business and the depth of the HR competencies. And for them, collaboration is the new competitive advantage, not competition. So they are able to collaborate at various levels to be able to drive strategic HR imperatives. They also embrace what we call holistic problem solving. They adopt system perspective so that they look at issues from broader areas of the organization rather than looking at it from one dimension. And because they are close to the business and working across in both vertically and in sideways, they are always in tune with the business and are able to understand the strategic needs and the operational needs of the business. And lastly, they are able to navigate this VUCA world. Remember when the COVID-19 pandemic came, you realize that we're all struggling to adapt. But a T-shaped HR practitioner will be able to adapt to any circumstance brought about by the global unpredictability. And VUCA has been with us for several years, but we still haven't leveraged it or embedded it in our competency framework. And what do I mean by VUCA? You know, in the way that we work in, there are several uncertainties. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, and it's ambiguous. What happens in one company can also affect the other. But what kind of collaboration the HR person is able to bring on board to be able to navigate this VUCA world where there are more unknowns than the knowns. So when we bring this kind of HR model on board, it will be able to help serve the interest not only of the corporation that they are working for, but it will bring HR visibility to the limelight. Because more often than not, we say we are not recognized. But the point is that, are we also making ourselves, viable in terms of what we do to the business? Or we are just there and just looking at policies and procedures and not looking at the drivers of the business. So that is why it is important that we have T-shaped HR practitioners. Let me share some views with you on the T-shaped HR practitioner, because it's very, very important. And let me tell you this story. You know, when we are all going to the schools and the universities, I know we are given a lot to learn. We learn subject from so many fields. And we are always advised that we need to have a multidisciplinary knowledge. But you realize that as we go through our career, and it was for a good reason, they are preparing us to work closely in organizations. But as we go through our career, you know, we veer into our various disciplines. And some disciplines are very lucky. They are lucky because they get recognition. And let me pick typical accountants. Accountants get more recognition because they count the money. Meanwhile, it's HR that creates the money. But if the CEO was to come to the organization, he will first visit the finance manager or finance director before going to the HR manager's or HR director's office, because that is where the heart is. So other disciplines who are very lucky are still recognized in their specialization. Unfortunately for HR, we are not, because at times our contributions are not seen. And we have other managers or line managers taking our credit. So how do we come out of this quagmire, making sure that we are also seen as contributing factors or contributing department or function working in the organization? That is why the T-shaped competencies are very, very critical. And this kind of conversation is to open a big debate on the HR practitioners platform for us to discuss this, so that as we move into our professional development, we'll look at not only our HR skills, but we'll also look at other skills that are very, very important. We also understand that as we practice, yes, HR is HR wherever you are, but the intensity or the scalability of the practice will vary from one organization to another. And in one organization, you will stress certain HR competencies more than the other. But we tend to, in our practice, we tend to put everything into the box and try to do everything, giving them the same percentages, instead of looking at the context in which we are working and see what aspect of HR do we leverage to make sure we contribute to the business that we're working for. So that's why the T-shaped HR development is very important. And when you look at the T-shape that we're talking about, just like when I met the CEO of CIB and we began the conversation, I asked Robert, yes, we want to have this collaboration, but let's have deeper conversation so that we can understand what we want to do. And after the conversation, I said, Robert, is it not a T-shape that we are looking at? I mentioned T-shape initially, but I think we didn't avert our mind to it. But it's what we are looking at. And suddenly we all came to the point that, yes, Doc, I think that's what we're looking at. So then how do we go about it? And from my perspective, we could look at it from this way. First, one, we need to have the HR practitioner in the financial sector must have breadth of skills and depth of skills. The breadth of skills must be in the core HR expertise area or the core HR domains, and must have breadth of skills in two areas. The breadth of skills you must have in these two areas are general knowledge of the financial business, because you can't work in a financial business and you don't understand the products, the techniques, the systems. You don't have any idea about it as HR manager, and you say that you just look at the HR domain, your contribution will not be felt. I also felt that why can't you also look at what I call cross-cutting capabilities that cut across the organization, and see how we can bring the HR person in the financial sector up to speed on certain key capabilities. So these are some of the thoughts that we feel will help us shape the HR practices in the financial sector. Looking at first, general knowledge of the financial business, cross-cutting capability as the breadth of skills that HR practitioner must acquire, and also core competencies of the specific HR areas. Then when we look at general knowledge, I asked Robert, I said, Robert, you know what? I'm not a finance person, but tell me, let me pick your brain. Tell me, Robert, what are the pillars that will drive a financial sector? So through the conversation, the first break came. That's the general knowledge of the financial business. I said, Doc, we should look at regulations. We should look at risk management. We should look at ethics. We should look at customer experience. We should look at financial management. And I think when the short survey that was run, I saw most of these elements popping up. And I said, okay, that's very good. If these are the competencies or the areas or the pillars that the HR practitioner, that is the foundation for the financial service, then the HR practitioner must also have some knowledge. Then later we look at what about the second break, the cross-cutting capabilities. As the organization culture is very important. They also need to also know about the strategy, leadership, and change management, and also digitalization, because when you look at the financial services, I think that's why we see most of the automations and technologies being used. So we look at these pillars as very, very critical to enhance the capabilities of the HR practitioner in the financial services sector. Then we look at what about the HR? What do we look at it? What about the HR? What competencies do we look at it? And I said, based on what you do, I think there are some key competencies that we could look at, which will be core for delivery in the financial services, where we can develop models around HR strategy development and execution. I think more often than not, it's always the case that you visit most organizations and we can see the business strategy, but we don't have the other leg, what I call the HR strategy. Well, if you have business strategy and you don't have an HR strategy, that strategy will not realize its full potential. But it's not the other way around. The business strategy comes before we develop the HR strategy out of it. And one aspect, there's one thing having a business strategy, but at times what we also feel as HR practitioners is how we execute the strategy. So we need to also build the execution skills. which is very, very critical to make sure we don't just have a strategy as a document on paper, but it's the one that is executable, putting the right HR metrics and analytics to make sure HR is able to show that this is the contribution that we've made to the business. Then workforce planning and talent sourcing is also very, very critical. I think when I was looking at the survey, some of these things pop up. And talent management, I heard of the CEO talking about talent exodus and people leaving, exiting back and forth, and how do we put in proper retention strategies to make sure we bring them on board. Learning and development, very core. It's always about continuous learning and lifelong learning. If you are in the banking sector, I think you should learn every second, every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month. Learning should be an ongoing thing because new things keep coming about and you face fierce competition. So learning is mandatory. What about compensation and benefit? Very, very critical. How do you build a robust compensation that helps you to attract and retain the best talents? Yes, I know for compensation and benefit, we try to copy from each other in terms of from sectors to sector. Find out what is happening here, find out what is happening there, and we add 2 or 2. But you also need to have a conviction that is also a key driver of your employee value proposition, and that your internal, making sure your internal equities and parities are very, very critical, as well as your external benchmarks, and make sure the benefit that you offer are also good one to be able to retain workforce. Look at performance management. Key. You cannot be successful if you don't manage performance, particularly in the service sector. You can't. So you need to also have a robust performance management system that drive performance and also reward output, superior output. And we felt it's very, very critical. One thing that is also critical to me from HR point of view is what we call employee experience and well-being. You know, I know the bankers, you talk about customer services, customer experience, but the point is that if the employee that will interact with customer doesn't have good experience, that experience will also be transferred to the customer. So you need to also be talking about employee experience as well, and not only customer experience, because it's the experience of the employee that is also transferred to the customer. So employee experience becomes then very, very, very critical. And well-being, you can't do that. I know at times long hours of work, but people also have their personal needs, and we need to make sure there is work-life balance, which is very, very critical, because yes, healthy workforce is equal to a healthy organization. If you don't have a healthy workforce, how do you have healthy financial services? So if you keep burning out employees, you will not get the best out of them, okay? And they will end up, though they are good employees, they will end up turning out as bad employees. Some good employees, through the practice of the organization, has turned good employees into bad employees because of the practices that we have. You burn out employees, and because of lack of work-life balance, they are not able to attend to critical personal needs. And as a result, it affects their performance. And you may be thinking they are not performing, they don't want to give their best. Not that they don't want to give their best, they want to give their best, but the workplace is so hostile. The practices does not allow them to give their best. And another aspect is the legal aspect. Legal aspect of HR is very, very key. Understanding labor regulations, the Labor Act, and other employment-related laws are very, very important. And you cannot become a successful HR person if you don't understand basic laws, particularly the Labor Act, and what is required of you, and also the legal environment in terms of employee relations, in terms of building good relationship between employees and management, which is superior, because at the end of the day, you want to have a sound workplace, a healthy workplace that everybody feel belong, workplace where people's views are respected, workplace where human beings are dignified, not treated like any other thing, but as people with feelings, emotions, aspirations, and growth and resource. That is knowledge that must be leveraged by the organization in order to be very, very successful. So these core competencies are very, very important. It doesn't mean we shouldn't have other HR domains. Before you became an HR manager, you would have prepared yourself in other areas. But looking at what the T-shape should look like is what is core. What are the areas without which you cannot be successful? And these are the core HR areas that are very critical to develop a T-shape HR practitioner that not only wears HR caps, but wears 3 caps. Wears the caps of the business, the cap of cross-cutting capabilities, as well as the cap of HR. It's very, very important. So what are we saying? So in brief, in conclusion, let's look at it. The HR profession has evolved from personnel management, and currently we are data and technology-driven HR management. That's what we are. Everything is about data and technology now. But the question is that, are we still being recognized? We have tried other models such as strategic business partnering. I think that's what every HR person wants to hear. We've also practiced what we call HR from the outside in, and the rest. Yet the contributions of the HR function in most organizations remain visible unacknowledged. Most of our contributions are locked in a black box, while other line managers and executives continue to take our credit. It is therefore time to unleash a new model to bring our contributions to the corporate limelight. Hence, the HR practitioner model for the financial sector is going to be a new pivot to drive HR recognition in organizations. And this is very critical. And I have believed in this model. And I have believed, and my belief is simple, that if we work for organization and we understand what organization does, if we work for organization and we understand the cross competencies that cut across the organization, and we have competencies in those areas, and if we work in that organization as HR people, and we have the capabilities that we need to drive HR processes, we should be able to contribute to the business both operationally and strategically. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Eduku. That's rather very insightful in terms of the number of hats that an HR practitioner working in financial services must wear. The breadth, the depth, but also the cross-cutting capabilities. That's impressive. Would get some reactions in terms of we want to make this as engaging as possible. But we'll put up a poll very quickly to get some responses from you, and then we can use that as basis for further discussion. But I see all the hand claps and acknowledgement that suggests that Dr. Eduku, what you've shared with us this morning is rather very insightful. The depth, the breadth, but also the cross-cutting capabilities. Impressive. So we have posted, we have posted a link. Again, this will be a new link, which will be, if you go to www.menti.com and put in the code, you see a question which you respond to. Now, I see a few hands coming up. We'll give you the opportunity pretty shortly if you bear with us. All right, so the question is coming up pretty shortly. Please reflect on what Dr. Eduku has shared with us, and then look at yourself as an HR practitioner in financial services or beyond financial services, and ask yourself, what are the critical competencies and skills so as an HR practitioner in financial service sector, what new skills and competency areas would you need to better support your organization? That's focusing on yourself. So I'd like to see some responses from you. Again, if you use the link that has been shared in the chat box, or if you go to www.menti.com, Jenny, James, Charles, I've seen your hands up. I would be giving you the opportunity after the poll. Again, the link is in the chat box, I should say. Please, okay, so we see some responses coming up. Strategic visioning, commercial awareness, emotional intelligence, knowledge in data science, effective communication. Those are some of the ones that have come up so far. Excellent. We have over 320 people on the call now. Would expect a few more responses. Excellent. Okay. AI in HR, data analytics, independence, courage. Great. Agility, which I believe Doctor talked about, collaboration, knowledge, I believe of labor law or in labor law, employee branding, which I suspect is a personal branding for employee. Okay, excellent. Financial acumen, compliance. I see some people putting their comments in the chat box as well, which is regulatory compliance. Great. So I would encourage you to continue typing your immediate needs, current needs, and future skills gap that you believe you have as an HR practitioner in financial services and beyond. And what we intend, using this for is that between the two professional bodies, if we were creating some certification or training programs to address your needs, would we be doing it from your point of view or from our point of view? Your point of view will be most important. And that's why we've asked you to share same with us. more from the skills gaps, the competency areas, the new areas that you like to build capability. I think we can take the next poll, assuming that you are not even in financial services sector. Beyond financial services sector, what additional skills would you need beyond the sector? And I would imagine that what Dr. Eduku said earlier on, that HR is HR everywhere. However, each environment will be different. I'm sure this question kind of addresses that. Beyond financial services, what else would be important to you? Leadership. Change management. Okay, so only 2 people: monitoring and evaluation. Okay. Environmental, social, and governance, ESG. Great. Emotional intelligence is coming up again. Financial acumen definitely coming up again. Financial statements, commercial awareness. Okay. Great. We have over 320 participants at this stage. I would expect lots more responses so that we can address your needs appropriately. Excellent. So awareness of people, risk, okay, digitalization, professionalism. Great. Commercial awareness is coming back. Excellent. And we see quite a few comments coming through in the chat box as well. At this stage, we're going to please keep typing your comments. We'll take them. We want to open this up. I saw a few hands up earlier from James, from Jenny, Charles. So we would let's give the opportunity to Charles. Charles, your hand is still up. You can unmute and share your thoughts or ask questions or make suggestions.
Okay, thank you very much, Robert. And thank you, Dr. Chief Executive of the Chartered Institute of HR Management. I would like to just make 1 or 2 comments.
Sure.
And I'm making this comment from the background of having been in executive management of the banking business, and then also as an educator in banking. What, from my experience, you see, HR has not thought to position itself in the business in such a way that it is seen as a part of the business that seeks to come up with solutions that answer the critical challenges that an organization faces. And I think this is where we are having the gaps. And HR, I know a lot of improvement, a lot of effort has gone in. HR is much, much, much better, more focused and visible than it used to be. But if you take a typical bank, the people who are answering to the critical challenges of the bank are the ones who are going to be seen, are the ones who are going to get the better of the rewards that are available. And yes, HR is contributing, but HR is not doing the advocacy the way they ought to do. If in an organization, HR is not on almost all the critical committees where decisions are made, the people who create the value, they also get the most in the distribution of the values. So if HR practitioners in banks do not display any knowledge in the operational areas, in risk management, in credits, and earlier comments by the CEO addresses this, and all the issues that have been identified that HR practitioners in the financial services need. But what does it actually mean on the ground? So in a strategy session, are HR there just to take the numbers of people we're going to need this year and next year and in 3 years' time? Or is it that HR is there to say that, look, listening to the head of strategy, listening to the head of business, listening to this, from an HR strategy point of view, these are the set skills you are going to need in this area. These are the skills you are going to need in that area. So our strategy is that in the next couple of years, we're going to have to recruit people, who would have a strategic fit with the strategy of the business. So you have an HR person who has displayed enough acumen such that when credit committee meets, he's there. There shouldn't be the thinking, or the HR themselves shouldn't create the impression that HR have nothing to do with credit or they don't understand credit. If an HR manager or HR person displays knowledge and acumen in that area and makes the case that I have to be a credit committee, because when the people come and they are delivering their papers, I have the eye to determine where the gaps are. Is HR at ALCO? Because we have defined ALCO as, the grounds for the treasury team to go and display. But who are recruiting the treasury team? So my plea to the HR profession is that you are on the right track. The T shape is the way to go. You have to demonstrate good knowledge, not just, an idea of what the business does, but a good knowledge of what is happening in the bank, so that you can make your case for being represented at the various level. If you are not around the table, forget it. So if HR is on the executive committee, if HR is on ALCO, if HR is on credit committee, and you are there and making your case, so it shouldn't be that when a head of department makes a request, then HR will go and recruit. And even HR goes to the head of credit or risk to go and find out, what kind of person should we be recruiting for you. And it is the head of that business unit that is rather writing the job description and the specification for HR. No, a strategic HR practitioner who understands the business is involved in identifying who should actually be recruited. And it is the HR person who is actually drafting the job description and the job specification, of course, with the help of the business head. So in summary, what I'm
Sure.
saying is that you should actually place yourself at the table where decisions are made if your contribution is to be recognized. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charles. The voice sounds very familiar. I think that's former CEO of Challenge to Your Bankers Ghana. You make very important points, particularly around being a strategic HR business person and being around the table where the decision is made. I'm told you are either around the table where the decision is being made, or you're on the table and the decision is being made about you. What I hear you say is that be around the table, be in the most important committees, move beyond your comfort zone to your learning zone and sometimes to your fear zone to be an effective HR practitioner in financial services. Thank you very much, Mr. Charles Ofori-Akwah. I see Nana Nana Kwabena Yeboah. I believe that's the head of HR GCB Bank. Nana, you have the floor. Nana, please, if you're on mute, you should be able to speak. Yes, great.
Yeah, thank you very much, Robert. So I thank you on my colleagues for being on this, and to the two CEOs for being on this call. I wanted to make a few reactions to what Charles just spoke about. I generally understand the context in which he's speaking. And when Dr. Duku was also speaking, he made some allusion to that in terms of how far HR has come and the evolution of the profession and all that. But I think that, and maybe I'm going to be unapologetic for the profession on this call. I think we sometimes we beat ourselves too much around the things that we need to do. Yes, there are certainly things that we need to do to improve the image of the profession, the value that we add to whatever business we are in, and so on. There's no doubt about that. But I think sometimes we are a bit too hard on ourselves. If that's what it would take, of course, to get us to the next level, I think we should do that. But it has become almost a cliche, you see, to say HR is not at the table and so on. I have had lots of, I've been in at least at least 4 different industries, let me put it that way. And in each of those industries in which I was, HR, at least in the last so many years of being in the profession, HR has been at the table. And not just being at the table, around the table, but contributing and adding value. Now, of course, like every other profession, every other, from medicine to architecture, banking, you name them, engineering and so on, there are always some people who are not really up there, and it's not restricted to HR. So, of course, the call on the idea on this call is to say that, look, if you are not doing what the others are doing, if you are not doing what even the standards of your own profession, I'm talking about HR, requires us to do, we all need to learn. We all need to have work on certain standards. And I know that at the Chartered Institute of HR will soon be coming up with some standards for practice in Ghana, okay, which will meet all the international standards and so on. But I'm just saying that sometimes it is just too, we shouldn't the motivation for us to get there should be that of it should be a business motivation. It should be a personal. Any other thing that all those things that will motivate people to do better in whatever profession they have chosen. But I think that sometimes we down talk ourselves too much. I don't see. So let me be specific here. For instance, the last example also that Charles gave about job descriptions. It should never be the job of HR people to write job descriptions. Never. Okay. Yes, we can try. We can be catalyst to it. We can guide. We can so on and so forth. But nobody knows the job better than the manager who is hiring for the job. So no matter what an HR person, no matter how much he learns and so on and so forth, yes, you can do the drafting and so on, but we should not add it in a bid to become more valuable to the organization. We should not add certain things that are not required of us. If you go to the medical profession, nurses are not allowed to do certain things by law. If you go to any other place, the accounting profession, if you don't have a certain level of certification and so on, you cannot do certain things. And I'm saying that it's the same thing. In every organization, HR has a part to play, an important to play, a part to play, a valuable part to play. But in so doing, we should not take up things which are not properly so-called in the HR domain to do. So, for instance, when he says that HR should be on the credit committee, I have no reason I don't know why HR should be on the credit committee of a bank. It should not be. We must put people on committees where they have the expertise to commit to and to contribute to what they need to do. Do HR practitioners or professionals need to know what the credit committee does? Yes. Do they invite themselves into those meetings to go and see what is happening, how and pick up some things and their own knowledge and so on? Yes. But to be on the committee and to say that if HR is not on the credit committee of a bank, then we are not contributing, I beg to be differ from that. In my bank and many other banks that I know, HR are on so many committees that sometimes you're not. Sometimes you can't attend all of them. So there are all kinds of steercos. There are all kinds of like product what do you call it? New product committees and all sorts of other committees which HR is properly on. But I'm saying that we do not need to be on every committee in the bank or wherever we are working in order to be relevant. And I just want to make that question that yes, we must strive hard to make sure that we are relevant as a profession and as individuals. But in so doing, we should not down talk ourselves too much. And then secondly, our value is not being putting our hands in every kind of pie. Okay, so that's just what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much, Nana Yeboah. So I would I see another hand up. Ali, I think it's Ali Mama. Ali Mama.
Yes,
I do hope that I got the name right. Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. It should have been Mahama, but that was the infancy. So they started with it, Mama.
Because that's a very important name right now. So they should get it correct.
Yeah. I'm most grateful. Yes, my brother, I like the way he talked as an HR. But what we are all looking at it is that HR, as far as the organization is concerned, is very, very important. They play a very critical role in the running of the organization. And therefore, there's a need for them to have knowledge in every aspect of work that they do. So they are the first people to recruit. And you must know the right people to recruit. And that is why there's a need for them to be part of every meeting. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are to lead their culture, but they should be able to also understand every bit of the work in the organization, so that when issues are put before you, you'll be able to analyze it very well. But if we restrain them from not participating fully in all the activities, they will also be handicapped, because it's a professional department, and you should be able to explain everything, because you are handling the human resource. So any grievances, anything that is bothering the organization, they have to also consult you. And so you should be able to know a little bit of it. So I want to also say that it shouldn't be a problem that the HR should be cut across in every meetings. They can be part of it, because if you are HR, you should be able to understand what is going on in credits, what is going on in operations, because people will be coming in for salary increment, bonuses, and if you don't know the financials, you may be compelled to listen to them. But if you are into financials and you know the trend and the way the bank is going, you'll be able to advise your people so that they will not agitate to ask for more salary increment and other bonuses anyhow. And that's my take. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahama. I see there's a question in the chat box from Salom Awuno Sepe. I hope I got that right. What happens to business acumen when HR is not in meetings or in committees, or not in a meeting or in a committee? What happens to business acumen when HR is not in meetings or committees? I think that's the question from him. Now I see your hand is up still. Is it your previous hand, or you are coming back?
Yes, Robert, just come back for maybe a minute. So yeah, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying that HR should not be on in meetings. That's not what I'm saying at all. In fact, I'll be very disingenuous to suggest even think of such a thing. In my personal career, the reason why I have grown one of the main reasons, catalyst for my growth, has been getting into things that normally people, other HR people will not get into. So I mentioned getting myself into meetings in which I have not been invited to. But because of my level in the organization, I can attend anyway. As an attendee, I am talking about being on committees. Being on the committee is different from being in attendance. And I'm saying that for purposes of learning and understanding what happens in the organization, whether it's in operations, is in safety, is in whatever part of the organization. That's why we have this concept in banking and in many other industries called general managers. To become a general manager, you must understand the organization generally. So I am not speaking about, say, HR should not be there. I'll never suggest such a thing. All I'm saying is that the fact that HR is not on the credit committee, for instance, does not mean that HR is not valued in the organization. And HR should not seek to be on the credit committee because they want to be valued. That's the point I'm making. You see, so you must attend whatever meeting, whether it's at the branch level, you are talking financial service now, whether it's at the branch level, whether it is in the head office, wherever, no matter what the discussion is about, you must seek to understand what is happening there. In addition to the depth that of issues that Dr. Duku mentioned, you see. So I am not suggesting that at all. HR must learn. If you don't do that, commercial acumen, financial, understand the financials and so on, you will fail. You will not get very far. You will always be making emotional arguments. You will not use data. You cannot talk the language of the business. And talking the language of the business is critical to your growth as an HR person. There's no doubt about it. I am just saying that how we measure our value to the organization is what we must be looking at. And the measurement of value to the organization is not in the number of committees in which we are named as members. No, you can attend the meeting, you can learn, you can read, you can do whatever it takes to find it. But don't measure your success in the organization by being on certain very, very, I mean, if you put an HR person on say the ALCO, for instance, is a member of the committee. He has voting rights and so on. Unless the person has some background that will enable him to do that, you'll be wasting the valuable time, executive valuable time, that will be better spent elsewhere. Should I know what ALCO does? Yes. Should I know the principles and which they work? Yes. Should I know the general economic conditions under which they make decisions? Yes. But to be a technical member of the ALCO, I think is all totally unnecessary. My time is better spent in some other area. So please, that's what I'm saying. I'm not discouraging us from learning. I'm just saying that let us be clear about how we measure our value to the organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No, I think the point is made.
Robert, can I make a point?
Let me just come back to Mr. Forekwa. Give me 1 minute. I think what I'm hearing, we are saying the same things from different perspectives.
Yes.
Again, let's not forget what this thought leadership is about. It's about developing that T-shaped professional, HR professional. By all means, have depth, but also have breadth and have the cross-cutting capabilities. How you do that may vary from organization to organization or from individual to the individual. What is important though is that you must understand the business, you must create value. Perhaps the best evidence of that would also be how many people pivot from HR to lead business areas to make it to the top. Those may be other areas that we need to pay attention to. But I see a few more hands. Mr. Opoyako, I see two ladies for the first time who want to make some quick comment. If yours is a very short one, we'll take it very quickly.
No, it's pretty short. I think Nana and Mr. Mahama and myself are making the same point. Being a credit committee does not mean that you are a member. I mean, being in the room is what is most important, because there are always members of committees and there are those who are in attendance. I mean, at times you are in attendance in a meeting and you, the person in attendance, may even be the key person who is presenting a paper. So we are talking about the same thing.
Okay.
We are not saying that HR should be the technical person making presentations at ALCO or at credit committee. But you make the point. We have to move to the point where HR people do not hit the glass ceiling in certain organizations just because they are not, they don't have specialized knowledge in the business of the entity. So it is we must come to the point where we are all moving up, and HR is playing a role, but is not being given the credit that it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see a question here. Please, I am a teacher. How can I make the course relevant to students in view of the conversation we just had? So I am a teacher. This is coming from Dr. Rejoice Asia Santi. I am a teacher. How can I make the course relevant to the student in view of the conversation we just had? And then the second part is, how can practitioners help in the training of prospective practitioners? How can practitioners help in training of prospective practitioners? I'll come back to the HR professionals here to respond to that. But I see Dorothy. Dorothy, your hand has been up for a while, so let me give you the opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, thank you very much, Robert.
I would like to make Robert, Dorothy will talk, but I should have introduced Dorothy, but because of the hitches, Dorothy is the vice president of the Chartered Institute of Human Resource Management. So Dorothy.
Excellent. Dorothy, please, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Francis, and thank you, Robert, again. I would like to make a contribution from my personal perspective. First of all, I would like to say that HR practitioners, we are generalists, okay? We are not bankers, we are not accountants, we are not whatever. However, our profession cuts across every professional or every industry, okay? So that is the first point. And that is why this T-shaped HR practitioner is critical. And listening to Francis, I realized that I started without realizing back then in the early 2000s that I started this T-shaped or I was practicing this T-shaped concept. Back then, there was what we called management by walking about. So I would go down, and I was working at a printing, company. It was the first time I was into printing. And I would normally just go down, and I'm a very curious person. I like asking questions. And I would go down to the floor, the production floor. We had various, aspects, different sections. Those managing the printing machines, the design, the whatever, So, and we're doing like ID labels, printing ID labels, toothpaste, all that, Colgate, all that. And I would just go and sit with the ladies. The ladies who did most of the packaging and the pasting of the labels. I would go sit with them, chat with them, find out what their problems are. And I would go from department to department, and I learned a lot. I remember at that time, the same time, I was doing my master's, and I used the company as, I talked about ethics. And that was my project. And I learned a lot. And I realized that I was broadening and it is only today that as I was listening to Francis, and I was like, so what I was doing all these years is this T-shaped thing. But back then, of course, I hadn't heard of T-shaped, and I learned a lot. And the same thing, I took that same concept into mining. I went into mining. So as HR practitioners, it is very critical. We need to really learn a lot, and we can do that by just visiting departments. In Newmont, for example, I'll go to finance, because even though I was in HR and I was looking after property and everything, I had clients whose houses we had rented. And I needed to understand, sometimes they bring their invoice and they'll call me, Dorothy, our payment, So I needed to understand what goes on in finance. So I'll go and sit with and ask, what are your processes? Then it's okay, the invoice, this, according to our regulations, it takes about 2 weeks for payment. And then I'll go to procurement, and then I'll ask questions, and then I'll go to the various. So by the time you are done, you naturally have that knowledge. And it is critical because otherwise, when somebody is talking about a problem he's facing in his or her department, if you don't have any idea, how do you even begin to, give answers? And then in the latter part of my career, talking about HR being at the table, one contributor said that, and it is very critical. It was a private company growing faster than, the policies that were in place. There weren't many policies in place at that time. And we were servicing a mining service provider. And even though at that time I was reporting to the CEO, when they go for their tender meetings and everything, there's production and there is finance, there's everybody but HR. And then I'll be there, and then they'll bring, oh, Dorothy, we have won this bid. We need to operate, recruit about 50 people in 3 weeks. And I said, hang on. You have to go through after the interviews and everything, you have to go through medicals. They have to go and say, oh, Dorothy, all these are not necessary. And I said, they're important. So at a point, I just said, listen, I need to be at that tender, whatever, when you're having the discussions, I have to be there to be able to understand what the needs are and anticipate and then start, thinking about, because we are looking at, I was, overseeing about 5 countries, and we are looking at dump truck, mechanics. We have to employ all kinds of people. I said, how can I employ 50 people in 3 weeks? So it is HR. It is not just knowing the policies and the theories. It is being practical. It is asking the right questions. It is being at the right table, whether it be it, being at a meeting, at the table in a meeting, or being part of the committee or whatever it is. I think once I told somebody, I said, look, HR is 50% policies and knowing your policies and theories, and 50% common sense and applying the knowledge you have. He looked at me and was like, what do you mean by common sense? And I said, HR is common sense. And he was like, what are you talking about? Anyway, for me, I think it's very important that we take this concept, and actually those of us who are not practicing it, because a lot of HR people, they only concentrate on HR policies, this. I said, no, you have to have a broad understanding. And because we are, as I said, we are generalists, it is very critical that we find ways and means to acquire that knowledge, that depth and breadth of knowledge. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. And that's well made point. Let me take Yvonne, and also remember there's a question from a lecturer or a teacher in terms of how we can make the conversation even more relevant and preparing students or prospective HR practitioners. Yvonne, please, you're unmuted, so you can go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, Robert and my boss. It's good to hear this information. I just wanted to add something that I've put in the chat, so I'll add the second issue on the training. Sometimes when we have these sessions, we are only thinking of those who sit at the top in HR, sitting at the table. An HR officer cannot sit at the table. So let's also look at how we can also develop these people. The critical of the matter is I don't know the right word, whether it's acceptance or understanding of the business owner or the final leader, the CEO, MD, or GM, understanding the role that HR plays in determining how far deep you want this HR to go. There are instances you want to sit there, but you are not given. You are giving advice, you are providing counsel, guidance, and it's not accepted. And the owner can tell you, it's my business. If Labor Commission comes out, I'll deal with them, don't worry. So let's also consider some of these dynamics and how to deal with them, maybe in subsequent webinars. For those in school, I would use myself and my GIMPA experience. Exposure to businesses is the best thing. Sometimes we learn all these beautiful things, but when you enter the business space, it gives you the real sense of how it works. When I was reading my MBA, my ERP course required an assignment where we had to go to a bank to observe how the system works. And we had the privilege of going to StanChart to see how their enterprise resource planning is working, so that you see all other departments linked to this system and delivering business. It gave me that understanding of the need of ERP, its benefits and all that, beyond just cost or making staff lazy, like what some of my bosses thought. So with the school one, the exposure to real life situations in the business sector helps. With the internships, focused assignments, not just say go and do internship, but the internship, what exactly do you want the student to learn? Is he going to learn how they recruit and select? Is he going to learn how they train top managers, middle managers, junior staff, so that the internship is also focused and not just going into the company? So that's the little I'll add. The other information is in the chat box. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Yvonne. And then I totally agree with you, especially on the students one. At Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana, we afford students the opportunity to even have mentorship and coaching or some career fairs. It's always important to ensure that students take advantage of that. That's how you build your network, but also your confidence. There may be things that you hear from people, who can help you shape your career. And sometimes it's said your network is your net worth. So again, interaction is always helpful. And so create those platforms for students to take advantage of. I'll go to Peter. Peter, I believe this is Peter Yao Bosruchi. Correct. Peter, your hand has been up for a while. You have the floor. Hello, Peter.
Okay. Hi, yeah. Robert. Thank you very much. So, this conversation I think I've had with you with regards to the practitioner, and I'm biased.
Correct.
More of the HR practitioners in the banking industry. So my take is that yes, the professional bodies of where, for instance, we're talking of the banking space now. So the Institute of Bankers and then the Institute of HR collaborating and working out a module training sort of for the HR practitioners in that industry, so that you have an idea of what happens in that industry. Yes. So, for instance, the question about whether to serve on committee or not will be dependent on even with the banks, depending on which bank you work in. But if you have a general idea of what the banks are supposed to be doing, what committees there are, which roles are available, and what kind of strategic discussions go on, then as an HR practitioner, you will, when you meet as maybe ESCO, or maybe even at other levels, like Yvonne mentioned, because at times we tend to forget about the other HR practitioners who should be prepared for the higher HR roles. So everybody gets to know what is expected in the industry they play in, because the HR profession is among the few who can work in who must actually be available in any other industry as long as there are human beings there. So for me, I think this brings to the fore the need as an Institute of talking about the Institute of Bankers, to probably after these conversations have a module for the HR practitioners to go through and then prepare themselves to properly deliver on what they are supposed to deliver on. We all talk about, oh, HR is not being respected here and there, but yeah, if the CEO, in having a conversation with you, the HR, realize that you are not making much input into the bigger picture, the bit about recognition becomes a bit suspicious, So it's very important for us to drive for the that kind of training program for HR practitioners in banking. I think that's my take.
Thank you very much, Peter. And I think you make an important point. And again, you actually mentioned that would be good for this collaboration, but you also make the point around how, given this is focused on financial services, how is the Chartered Institute of Bankers helping, or how do we create models that can help build that industry-specific understanding? And I'm going to just pivot on the back of that, and I'll see a few more hands are coming up. So, so I'm showing a slide now. I did mention earlier on that Chartered Institute of Bankers, our mandate is to promote banking education, but also regulate the practice of the banking profession. And we take the view that it's important to build innovation even to the qualifications. So you see that we've rolled out the ethics certification, also redesign the chartered banker qualification, and you may be in banking as HR practitioner or other professionals. We are creating a model around that as well. So other professionals who are working in banking, you may not be in core banking, i.e. driving corporate and investment banking or retail and wealth management, but you want to have some understanding that model is coming up. But we've also, and I'm glad, Peter, you made that point, we've launched the Chartered Banker for Executive Leadership Program. And Peter is one of the actually benefited from this, and thanks, Peter, for availing yourself. The Chartered Banker for Executive Leadership Program is for people in key management positions across the financial service sector, and you want to become a chartered banker, have an understanding more at the strategic level. You may not do tailoring, you may not do operations, but you sit at the ESCO level when we're talking about risk management or asset and liability management or fixed income or any other, yes. You want to have a certain understanding. So that's important. And then, of course, ESG certification. And I saw earlier on someone say, as HR practitioner, you're interested in ESG. Again, that's a program that we are currently running at the Institute of Bankers here in Ghana. And the second cohort is actually in progress. Then, of course, there's what we call the Banking Academy. So you may not want to become a chartered banker, or you may want to become a chartered banker. There are specific models that we can mix and match to help you achieve your strategic focus, but also make sure that you are enhancing the overall employee banking proposition. Then, of course, there's Digital Academy. We all know the AI and all the challenges that we face, but also the opportunities. I saw recently that AI will create a 4.3 trillion USD value. But in that process, 87 million people will lose their jobs. But good news is that 87 million people will lose their jobs, but 97 million people will get new jobs. Again, the Digital Academy will be important. In the ethics certification that we launched, here's the completion status. It's interesting, only 11 banks have completed so far. Again, as HR practitioners, we'd encourage you to encourage your team members and your bank to drive ethics, because the fraud issues and the trust issues that we face are important. If I were just showing you the new curriculum, and I'm showing this on purpose so that at the very fundamental level, this goes to Peter's point to say, what can we create? As an HR practitioner, the fundamentals in financial services will be important. How does the monetary and financial system work? What are the laws and regulations as far as they relate to the financial services sector? What are the customer experience and service excellence issues? But also the ethics and professionalism. And again, this is the basic, if you look at it. And the clear competencies that we all need to pay attention to in the banking sector are, of course, the technical banking skills or financial service skills, but also an understanding of not just the bank or the organization where you work, but also the macro environment and the industry environment. Then, of course, the people, the leadership governance. Then the digital capabilities and mindset and skill set will be key, but also the competency framework around ethics and professionalism will be very important. I just thought I'll use that to share with you some of the other things that the Institute is doing, even from mentoring perspective, the digital academy that I talked about earlier. I know, Dr. Duku, you have been quiet for some time. I'm sure you may want to have some comments on what you have heard so far.
Yeah, I've been quiet and you've been selling the bank at the expense of the HR.
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
I think basically when I listen to other have been said, I think like somebody said, we are talking about the same thing. And for us as the Chartered Institute of Human Resource Management, with our legal mandate to regulate the practice of human resource management and also to set standards for HR practice in Ghana, we want to see HR people playing a critical role in organizations. Because for us, the organization is all about people. And if the HR person there is recognized, that's where the organization can be more successful. But we need to also speak to our HR folks, the kind of their contributions there, because the HR department is as strong as the leader of that department. If you have a weak HR leader, then your recognition will always be subsumed to other departments. That's where your competency development is very, very critical. It's very, very key. And that's what we're going to work with most associations to upskill the people skills, particularly the HR people in those organizations. Hence, this partnership is very, very critical that we get going. For me, the T-shape is a way to go, regardless. It's not an I-shape. The I-shape is good, but acquiring the depth and not the breadth is always not good for organizations. Because like I always tell people, in organizations, it's not about the English, it's about the numbers. Whatever you are talking about, show it in numbers form. And that will be very, 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 very important. We shouldn't also beat ourselves like what Kobna said. Look, HR cannot be everywhere. You can't. You can't be everywhere. Because other departments have to also be somewhere. But your role is to also understand what is critical to the business. And that is where you should be leveraging. Yes, if you are doing so many things, but what you are doing is not adding value to the mission and vision and strategy of the business, then your contribution will not be recognized. And that is simple. So you need to understand what drives, how does this company make money? And how do I contribute from people perspective? So we are not beating ourselves, but we should also say that if we were to run some research and find out in terms of professional growth, and you look at the HR career in terms of professional growth in organization, you realize that we will be way down there compared to other professions. So that is where we need to lift our game and know we understand what we are doing. I always tell HR people, you need to understand, when Dorothy was talking, I was listening to her carefully. I said, it's very, very important. Because at times we'll be doing something and we don't know what it's called. Because if we do something and we know what it's called and we can name it and we can develop models to support it, then we can deepen those competencies. It's very critical, like as HR people, in addition to becoming a teacher, we need to also understand what I call the 6 C's of the HR profession. And we'll be running some programs towards these 6 C's, because I've been hearing people and it all links to the 6 C's and the T-shaped HR. And what I mean by the 6 C's, number 1 C is competence, 2 is courage, 3 is credibility, 4 is curiosity, 5 is confidence, and 6 is care. If we understand the 6 C's of the HR profession and we exhibit them and we have this T-shape embedded in us, I see no reason why we cannot drive the business. Because after all, I think we will be the successful CEOs because we understand the business and the people dimension. So we shouldn't beat ourselves, but we must agree we have a long way to go. And that's why some of these conversations are very, very critical. One thing that we need to also let those in the bankers is that with the mandate that we have to develop HR professionals in this country and also to set standards to guide HR practices, the standards will soon be out. But like the accountants do, a time will come in this country, not long, if you have not certified through this institute, you cannot practice in certain role in this country. And that is why some of these collaborations are very, very critical. Yes, we agree people can do the SHRM, they can do the CIPD. But when you do those SHRM and the CIPD, according to the law, we recognize you as an associate member and not a chartered human resource practitioner. So we need to know the distinction. And what is the law? We are going to, and we'll make sure our people in those roles have the competence so that they get the right recognition, they get the right respect, so that this issue of always beating ourselves will be a 10. So that is a future I would like to make, but I'm excited about the conversation. I'm excited based on what I've heard. And I believe the model that we put together, if we all come on board, we should be able to shape the HR organization in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ejikwu. I like the 6 C's that you've mentioned for HR practitioners. I think we have some 3 C's in financial services as well. Because the business of banking or financial service broadly is a business of trust. And that trust comes from competence, character, and conduct. And those are the 3 C's I like to leave with you. I see a few more hands up. Theophilus, I've seen your hand. Belinda, I'll come to you shortly. I think there was a question from, the name is Mary Donko. I think Mary Donko Kubo. Or, okay, so Mary says that some HR practitioners have limited themselves so much that they do not have the basic knowledge of the organization, the organizational needs and purpose. I think that has been sufficiently addressed. Then there's Lena Ima Ejiri, I believe. A trend, I have seen a trend recently, which is that some HR departments have lost their independence and are just instructed, quote unquote, instructed on what to do, even though staff are professionally competent. So that is an observation made by Lena Ima Ejiri. I see one from Evelyn Asameni or Samani. Please pardon me if I didn't get the surname right. I started my career from the secretarial profession, and I remember I worked with a ministry full of engineers who were ready to provide information about everything I want. And it really helped me to understand the delivery of my duties as a secretary to the national director. I still do this noisy thing in my profession. Well, I'm not sure. Nosy thing in my profession, I should say, as HR. And it is helping me a lot, even though most of the time I am not involved in their planning meetings. I am still pushing the importance of having HR on committees, which I am sure it will come to pass by and by. So that's Evelyn's comment. I'll take Theophilus. Oh no, Belinda first, and before I go to Theophilus, Belinda. And we are about wrapping up as well. I think this is getting interesting, but our time for this session is 2 hours, and we intend to keep to that. Belinda.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. I want to add my voice and comment to what we were discussing earlier, to say that as much as we HRs want to be counted as important and not be overlooked, we should show ourselves approved and ready to be counted as such. We have to take advantage of every opportunity available to let the business know we are capable to perform in line with the business strategies. We should give ourselves to reading, seeking information, learning, and asking questions when we don't understand it fully. Learning is an everyday thing, not a one-time thing, because businesses evolve. So as HR professionals, we should move in step with the changes that come in the business environment, not only in our HR field. We would not be given the recognition we want if we want to work in ignorance of the entire business landscape. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you've kind of landed back on the death and breath conversation. Thank you, or the T-shaped, so to speak. Theophilus, I saw your hand earlier. Theophilus, if you're still here, you have the opportunity.
Yes, my hand was up, but I realized my point has been made, so I'll let it pass, please.
That's fine. Thank you, sir. Theophilus, by the way, Chief Risk Officer, I believe, GCB Bank, one of our chartered bankers by the Executive Leadership Program. Thank you, Theophilus. There was a hand up.
You're welcome.
Thanks. There's a hand up that I think has dropped. We're going to be wrapping up shortly. It's always important to get some feedback or your thoughts on this event in particular. So we'll be posting the link in the chat box so that you can give us what stood out for you from today's session. What is it that you like most? What is it that we can improve? And most importantly, if we're doing a collaboration tomorrow at the next thought leadership event between Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana and Chartered Institute of Human Resource Management, what would you like to see? Please, that link has been posted, and therefore please complete that for us. I saw Nana, your hand was up. Nana Ebua, your hand was up earlier. I'm not sure if you wanted to come back. Yes, please come.
Robert, just some information for our colleague who asked about how the one in the teaching field, how we could make things a bit more practical. And I remembered when Peter was speaking, because the University of Ghana Business School has this concept. They call it the corporate executive in residence, and Peter is currently one of the corporate executives in residence for the business school. It's a simple concept that says that you get someone from the industry to come and speak to the students a certain number of times a year and so on. I think it's if she's in a position to adopt that, it will be helpful, very helpful for her. So that she goes for the academic point of view, and then she herself, if she's a professional, can also get some other professionals to add to that conversation, and so that the students are better prepared for the world after work. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that suggestion. Extremely grateful and useful. We'll take the last comment, if any, before we wrap up. I think the attendance today has been rather impressive. Like we said, the purpose of this session really is to focus on you as HR practitioners, because you focus on others, other people, and nobody is focusing on you. And we thought that it's important, given human capital is the biggest issue that we should all address our minds to. It was important that we put the searchlight on you and focus on you. Any additional comments or suggestions before we wrap up? Okay, I don't see any hand. Dr. Duku, do you have any comment before maybe we? Dr. Duku,
yeah, I think my final comment is that this is a conversation we're going to have, and also going forward, the institute is planning what we call the HR clinic with the CEO to have some of these conversations. Apart from this collaboration, I want to interact with HR professionals in this country on topical issues so that we can continuously deepen the skills in this country.
Sure. Thank you for that. And from our side, again, you've provided us some thoughts around your top of mind, stay awake issues, some of the challenges that we face. Then, of course, the critical skills that will be important to you. Work together in the spirit of collaboration, partnership, to see how we develop that into some contents to bring the banking and financial services sector perspective combined with the HR professionals perspective. And we do hope that when we have the content ready, you participate and also encourage your team members or your to participate. So again, on behalf of the two institutes, we'd like to say a big thank you this morning for joining us. We do hope that this has been an effective use of your 2 hour. We know this is prime time, and to have over 320 people on this call consistently, that's impressive. Please, once again, complete the feedback forms for us. That's the only way we can continuously improve. I like the point that was made earlier, particularly around curiosity. There are a lot more things that we haven't shared today. Please take the advantage and learn about the Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana curriculum, the leadership, the Chartered Banker qualification, ESG and others, but also the Chartered Institute of HR Management in terms of the content and CPDs that may be coming up pretty shortly. On that note, it's just hitting the top of the hour. I would like to say a big thank you. Let's have a happy new year. And we look forward to seeing you at our next thought leadership event. Once again, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.